Hey, what's up, Superdads? So today I'm going to be answering a question that came in through the Facebook group, and the reason I'm doing it in this way with a video is that I think it's the kind of question that's first of all tough to answer in writing, or at least it would take a very long time to write everything out, and also because I think it would benefit a lot of people because, the transition, this is the topic, the transition from gym-based training to primarily training at home with, the kind of equipment that a normal person might have at their house. What does that transition look like? What should you be aware of when trying to program for that sort of transition? Just guidelines in and around that. And so I'm going to read the question. The specifics of this person's situation will come up a little bit because I will be addressing those specifically with my answer. Not everything will apply to everyone, but in general, the answer should apply to a lot of people who are going through something similar. So here's what we got. We've got a HIIT enthusiast, someone who's been doing a minimalist approach, which for him looks like the big three: leg press, chest press, and pull down or row once a week. Various different protocols in and around that sort of thing. So very minimal approach to this. He's moving to training at home, and he says his setup there will be minimal, but he's actually got a bit of stuff here. We've got dumbbells up to 52.5 pounds, adjustable, an X3 resistance band setup, furniture moving straps, yoga blocks, push-up handles, doorway pull-up bar, and resistance bands. And he just wants to know if I have any guidance about how to utilize what he has, whether he needs to purchase anything else, and what kind of stuff he should be thinking about when he's programming for home-based training. So here's what I would start with. I'll go the big stuff, the sort of big concept stuff, down narrower and narrower, and at the end I'll give an example of how I might approach training in this way. So first, I would suggest training 3 times a week. Now for you, that's going to be a marked increase in frequency, and there is a reason for this. Now, you don't need to stay with 3 times a week. If you start with 3 times a week, as I'm suggesting here, and it proves to be too much, you can't recover, whatever it is, or it's just it's too much of a time commitment, something like that, you can always scale it back and go back to once a week like you were doing before. But the reason I'm going to recommend starting with 3 times a week is, first, training at home is going to require a bit more creativity, and creativity is a product of iteration. You can't be creative if you only really do something once, or only doing it once a week is going to limit your ability to be creative. The more you are exploring the possibilities of home workout, the more frequency you have in that space, the more you're going to come up with ideas. So that's one reason. Another is you're going to be practicing a lot of new movements. You're going from machines to training with dumbbells and bands and your own body weight, these sorts of things. And there's going to be a new technique you need to learn, new form you need to hammer down. So practice is important, and practicing once a week for one set is going to take a lot longer for you to really nail the form and technique that's required for these exercises. So with almost all of my clients, if they haven't been exercising very much, or if they're coming from a situation like this guy is coming from, I recommend that they can do 2 sets instead of just doing 1. They can do it with more frequency because they're learning the movements. So those are good reasons to go for 3 times a week. I would recommend full body because why not? Why not start with full body, see how it works. If you're having trouble recovering, you can always scale it back by doing, a legs day, a push day, a pull day, or any other of the splits that you're fond of. You could do 1 body part a day if you'd like, but I generally recommend full body workouts for people because that way nothing gets neglected. It gives you a chance to, again, practice with frequency as opposed to once a week. And if you're just starting this kind of exercise, there's going to be a lot of novelty to it. So that's going to be a stimulus in its own right, which means you're not going to need to do 10 different exercises for your legs in order to really, really sap everything, wring out the last possible little bit of strength that they've got, so that you can, so that a week of recovery time makes sense. You're going to probably be failing quicker than you would imagine because the newness, the novelty of the exercises that you're doing. Okay, I would also recommend choosing a few staple exercises and keeping those in your workouts basically across all of the workouts that you do. So, you could have 3 different workouts that you do, A, B, and C. And it's okay if you want to, have different staples for each of those 3 workouts, for example. But I wouldn't recommend necessarily changing the entire workout each time, the sort of muscle confusion approach or whatever that is. Not that I think that this kind of person would do that, but just covering my bases here. So when I say you should have a few staple exercises, well, you've been doing a very minimalist approach that's based around 3 staple movements, right? Pushing with your legs, you got pulling with your upper body, and you have pushing with your upper body. Well, similarly, when you move to doing your workouts at home, pick 3 staples, something like push-up, pull-up, and bodyweight squat, or not even bodyweight squat, but squat with dumbbells of some weight, perhaps racked on your shoulders like this could be a good idea. And keep those in your rotation. And the reason to do this is because it's going to make it easier to track your progress, to know when you need to make things tougher, when it's time to add weight or something like that. If you don't have these staples, it's really hard to track. And so progress is hard to gauge, and it can be difficult to know when it's when it's time to level up the difficulty at all. Now, I say staple exercises because the way that I generally approach these sorts of workouts is I'll have just a couple exercises that I do every time, and I track the progress of those. And, when doing it at home, this can be a little bit trickier than where things are more standardized in the gym. You could count the reps that you're doing as long as you are, making sure that those reps are the same across, iterations, across different workouts that you're doing. And this is a big deal. I didn't recognize how much of a big deal this was until I started videotaping. I was tracking my reps for squat, back squat, right? And I would say, okay, when I get to this number of reps, then I'll increase the weight. And instead of just increasing the weight when I hit that number, I also videotaped. And so I went from doing, I think it was, 9 reps to doing 12 reps. And I was like, all right, 12, well, it's probably time to go up. But just to be sure, I compared the 2 videos. I compared the video of me doing 9 reps and the video of me doing 12 reps. And what I found was the total time that I spent doing the exercise with no lockouts and no rest was exactly the same. It hadn't changed at all. The only thing that had happened was I had started speeding up my reps because I wanted to beat the number that I had hit last time. So when I got 9 the next week, I knew I had to get 10. And so subconsciously, I just started doing the reps a little bit faster. But really, I hadn't gotten stronger. My muscles were still failing at exactly the same amount of time under tension. So I still needed a lot more time with that weight, and I needed to be more honest about the reps that I was doing. So it can be really tricky to do this at home, which is why I recommend either videotaping the reps that you're doing for the staple. If it's just one staple exercise, that's fine. But you want to have one exercise that you are tracking in an effective way. And so if it's push-ups, say, don't just count the reps because you'll start cheating the reps. Do something like videotape your push-ups and compare them, from workout to workout to see whether or not you're making progress. Or use a stopwatch. Push-ups are a good one for this. Just make sure you don't lock out or rest. Use a stopwatch and time the total time under tension that your muscles are able to handle in a push-up position. Assuming your body weight doesn't fluctuate massively, this would be a good indication that you are in fact getting stronger if the time increases. That is. So you're having these few stable exercises for the purposes of tracking, and also because they're going to work a lot of the necessary muscles and movement patterns. Then you can riff after that. That's where the improv, that's where the jazz gets played, right? So, you'd hit your 3 staples and then you tag on whatever else you want to do during your workout time that day. Let's say you want to hit extra on your chest, so you put in a couple other variations for chest. Or let's say, you're feeling like your back has come along well enough and you don't need to push it too hard on that. Well, just hit your one, whatever it is, pull-ups. You only do pull-ups. That's all you did for your back that day. And you took the rest of your recovery resources and spent them elsewhere in your body, specializing as you saw fit, because you checked off your staple exercises. Okay, next. Just in general, when you're designing the workout, you want to start with compound movements. Now, this is not always the case, but for most people, it is going to be the case. So you want to start with your squats, your push-ups, your pull-ups, things like this, and then move on to more isolated movements like lateral raises for your shoulders, or bicep curls, or sissy squats for just your quads. So compound to isolation, in that order, right? You also want to go in the order of priority. So if you are really trying to bring your chest up, for instance, start with your chest. I tend to start people with legs because I always want to bring my legs up more. I have more trouble growing them, but that's not the case for everybody. A lot of people, especially men, they really want to develop their upper body and they're not as worried about their lower body, and that's totally fine. To each his own. So if you want to bring your chest up, you want to start with the chest and then move to the next order of priority muscle that you want to bring up in that order, right? Generally, you don't want to add volume. You don't want to add overall volume or overall work done in order to bring up a lagging muscle group. What you want to do is reduce the volume that you're doing for one muscle group. So like I said before, your back is already coming up really well. It's looking good. It's responding well. Well, you can probably just do one set for your back as long as you push it, and then put some more of the volume that you would have otherwise done for your back, put it into your chest on that day. That would be a way to approach it. Okay, next, when you're actually doing an exercise, you want to avoid lockout. I've said this a few times. Avoid lockout and resting positions. Okay, full range of motion for those of us who are into high intensity exercise does not mean going all the way to lockout and all the way to rest. It means ironing out over, so finding the point in the movement where tension is about to leave your muscles and move into your skeletal structure on either end, so the bookends, and then just going back and forth through that. That's your full range of motion. This has saved me a lot of pain. It's healed a lot of injuries for me. It's also made exercise a lot more efficient, and I've gotten good results from doing it this way. Control the reps at all time. Having a rep, counting the seconds of your rep can be helpful, but as I demonstrated or tried to hint at with my story about the back squat, even if you're counting those, you have no way. If there's no objective way to tell whether your count is accurate or to keep you honest about that count, subconsciously it will just speed up. So just counting in your head is often not that helpful. I don't actually even count reps at all. I'll make another video about this, but the number of reps that you do, I've given up on counting on that because I find it just is distracting and it just detracts from the focus, but it also it will subconsciously cause you to cheat. There's really you'd have to be the most dialed in person. You'd have to be basically an exercise robot to not start cheating when you start counting reps, because it just messes with your psychology. So just keep them controlled. Make sure that there's nice and smooth turnaround, no yanking, no swinging, nothing like that. And this should all be obvious to anyone who's coming from a HIIT place. All right, now I would say default. Looking at the equipment that you have, you want to default to bodyweight exercises or free weight exercises. So the dumbbells or bodyweight exercises as opposed to exercise bands, because the strength curve of exercise bands is so exponential in a lot of cases that it will cause you to reach sticking points faster than you reach failure in a lot of cases. Now, this may not be true for every exercise. There may be some that resistance bands have the perfect strength curve for. Maybe your press, your chest press, the resistance band has the perfect strength curve for it. But personally, I don't really like having a giant resistance band like yanking on my skin behind me. Even with a shirt on, it ends up causing my skin to break out, and it's just uncomfortable. And I would rather just use dumbbells or body weights. Look, push-ups are a fantastic chest exercise. Dips are probably the best chest exercise. I don't even do bench press or anything like that anymore. Basically, I do dips and dips and incline press, like that, those sorts of things. So I would default to those. The bands, can be useful for some things, but by and large, stick to the weights and your body weight. you're lucky that you have a pull-up bar. That's going to make a big difference there. Okay, now I would also say for your legs can be tricky at home because, if 52.5 pound dumbbells, okay, they're not light, but they're also not super heavy considering how strong your legs likely are. And your body weight, unless you're like a very large person, your body weight is not going to be that substantial for your legs. So when it comes to legs, I would largely recommend that you default towards single leg exercises because that will just make it'll make it a lot easier to reach failure in an effective way in an efficient amount of time. So things like split squats, things like single leg deadlifts. However, when you're doing the single leg exercises, you want to be braced on something. You don't want balance to be the limiting factor. So put your hand on a wall or have a stick or something like that so that balance is not what's keeping you from pushing further into the set. Another option there would be to pre-fatigue your legs in some way. I really like doing isometric work for my legs prior to doing dynamic work. So you could do like an overcoming isometric wall sit, or you have moving bands. Put those straps around your arms and do like a front squat, or what's it called, where you put it in the crook of your elbows. That squat, this one. And pre-fatigue those legs. It's gonna keep your joints healthy. It's gonna make your legs stronger, and it's gonna make it a lot easier to reach failure when you're doing those. Okay, then on the topic of isometrics, I would make sure that you include quite a few overcoming isometrics. Sprinkle them in throughout your week. You can put them prior to your dynamic work, and the reason for this is mostly twofold. One, it's really going to help with your strength, right? They're just fantastic for developing strength. But another one is bone density. If you're not having heavy weights loaded on you, so like doing a bodyweight squat for your bones is not all that different from just standing, and your bones aren't going to increase in density from just carrying your body weight. That's just a normal load for them. So when you're doing a leg press or something like that, or a back squat or whatever it is, you're carrying a whole lot of external load, and your bones get the signal that they have to get denser and stronger, right? If you don't have that anymore, that external load, because dumbbells aren't going to be heavy enough for that, you need to find some other way to do it. And isometrics are a great way to do this. So this is a great place to put in, and I'm talking overcoming isometrics here. Throw those in, press, a pull, press with your legs, a deadlift, all these sorts of things to really strengthen the bone density, because it is an important point, important takeaway or an important benefit of gym-based exercise that people tend to get. Okay, now another thing that I would recommend is be liberal with your intensifiers. So when you're working out in a gym on machines, it's much easier and safer to push a machine workout to like really close to failure, because if your muscles crap out and the machine falls back into place, you're not likely to get injured. You don't need a spotter or anything. Now, I'm assuming when you're working out at home, you're probably not going to have a spotter. And so take, for instance, like shoulder press with dumbbells. You just can't push that as close to failure as you can with a shoulder press on a machine for several reasons. The stabilization of the dumbbells makes the set more difficult, for one. But another one would be if you went to real close to failure with a shoulder press with dumbbells, you're risking dropping the dumbbells potentially on your head. And I've actually done that before. I dropped like a 35-pound dumbbell or something, like just bonk right on top of my head. Good thing I've got a hard head. And I had a spotter at the time. He just couldn't catch it. So imagine if I didn't have one. I mean, he tried to catch it, but Anyway, so the point is, use a lot of intensifiers. And when I say intensifiers, I may mean things like drop sets, I mean J-reps, I mean rest pause sets, I mean lengthened partials, I mean isometric holds at the end of the set, these sorts of things. Now, a lot of high intensity training, like enthusiasts, devotees might be a better word in this situation, will say that you don't need these things if you push your set to true momentary muscular failure. But a lot of those people are not doing workouts at home. And if you are doing workouts at home, it's a really good idea to have these because they're going to allow you to accumulate more time near failure, more time in proximity to time in and time proximal to failure. So throw those things in. And I have lots of videos about how to do these sorts of things, and you can find them all over the internet. So any sort of intensifier at the end to make sure that you're getting enough time, you're getting close enough to failure, and you're making a house there and living uncomfortably there is a good idea. It's also totally fine to do more than one set. Again, you're practicing these things, and it's going to be tough to push it all the way to failure as you would in the gym. So you can just do another set. Just do another set if you need to. Or change an exercise and hit the same muscle group, which is what I prefer to do. Okay, now the equipment that this particular person who asked the question has is a great setup. The only thing that I would recommend he might get is a bench, an adjustable bench, because it's going to let you do incline presses. It's going to let you do various back workout things, shoulder presses. It's good for putting your feet on when you're doing, leg elevated squats and stuff like that. An adjustable bench could be useful, but it's absolutely not necessary. You can do really well with the stuff you've already got. And finally, let me say that this person mentioned this in their post, and it's totally true. Creativity is more of a premium when you go to home-based workouts, because when you have a leg press machine, you don't need to be real creative with it. In fact, being creative with a leg press machine is the way to get suboptimal results, and it's a way to injure yourself. But at home, you're going to have stuff in your house that looks innocuous that is actually the best exercise equipment that you have. And it's just going to take enough open-mindedness and enough iteration and enough thinking and playing and all those sorts of things in order for you to realize, oh, wait a sec, that thing that's just been sitting there the whole time is actually perfect for what I need to do, for the kind of exercise that I want to do. And so keep your mind open, be curious, try things out, be creative. Now, let me run through an example workout real quick that I would do if I were this person with this equipment. So if, let's say, for example, I want to bring my chest up. So you'll notice this in that priority. So here's what I would start with. You've got push-up handles. So do a set of push-ups with the handles. Push it as close to failure as you can. And then maybe do an isometric hold at the end so that you really, as an intensifier, so that you really accentuate that. Then I would go with dips. You can use chairs for this. You can use a dining table for this. I've got that in another video. And a dining table is actually a great way to do dips. And again, push it as close as you can to failure. And then again, an isometric hold at the end, something like that. Or, you could do lengthened partials with a dip. That would be a good fit, either one of those. Okay, and you might finish with flies, dumbbell flies. So just lay on the ground, get your dumbbells, and really accentuate the stretch in the chest. For the flies, you're basically going to do lengthened partials, because once you get past a certain point, the strength curve or on the dumbbell is going to get really easy because of the nature of the lever arm and moment arm and all those sorts of things and the way the muscle works. So I just do lengthened partials with my flies, and that's another great one to do. Actually, you could do like a rest pause with that. So hit a bunch, try to get up to something like 10, 12, 15, take a few seconds, do a few more, take a few seconds, do a few more as your intensifiers. Okay, and that'll do your chest. So that's 3 exercises, and you should be able to knock those out in 2-3 minutes, something like that, if you're efficient and once you learn how to do them all. Okay, then you go into back. I would do bent over rows with your dumbbells. You can do this with 2 arms at once, or you can do it single arm, whichever you feel more comfortable with. Or since you have a door pull-up bar, I would use your furniture moving straps or a long towel or just something like that. Wrap it around the bar. Don't wrap it so that it just flops over the top, but wrap it so that it's sort of the things come over in the same way. So I can't demonstrate it with my hands, but you'll figure it out. Again, use your creativity so that the strap is coming over the same side of the bar. Grab onto that and use the strap or the towel or whatever it is to do body weight rows. Personally, I would opt for the body weight rows over the dumbbell rows, but I would also freely switch them in and out depending on the week. that I was, how I was feeling, what I wanted to do, just that kind of stuff. Okay, after that, go to pull-ups. Now your back's already going to be taxed and your upper body's already going to be pumped, so it's going to be tough to do pull-ups at this point. So get a chair or something like that, put it under your pull-up bar, and use your legs to help you. And I call this an adaptive drop set. It's where, you start off by doing more or less strict pull-ups, and then your legs help more and more as you go. You can also adjust based upon whether you're doing the positive portion of the rep or the negative portion of the rep, but all of this, you'll be able to push the set very deep with the help of your legs in this case. And then finally, I would finish with a set of upright rows. So get the dumbbells and pull the dumbbells up to your face, lead with your elbows right up to here, and that's gonna, make sure that you're getting your traps well hit, and it's going to bring your shoulders into the equation a little bit more than they have been, or at least the side of your shoulders. Lead with your elbows, as I said, and sort of bring the weights up to your cheeks. And upright rows with dumbbells are a great way to do them, because you don't have to worry so much about finding a bar that's comfortable and it's going to hurt your wrists or anything like that. Okay, now we already started hitting the side delt with these upright rows, so then I would go to lateral raises with the dumbbells. Recently, I've been doing them with like a really exaggerated range of motion like this, and stopping well shy of, making sure that there's tension so it's not just hanging at the bottom. And I'm liking those. I don't know if they're going to give me huge results compared to normal lateral raises, but they make a good way, or they give you a good opportunity to do a very slow isometric, eccentric portion of the rep at the end. So when you finish, shoot them up above you and just hold them as long as you can, as long as you can, as long as you can, and then you get down to the bottom and maybe tag on some lengthened partials at the end of that. Okay, that'll do your shoulders, and then we're on to legs. So if it were me, I'd probably start with some sort of squat variation to get the whole leg development. But if you don't want to use the dumbbells, go with split squats. Just make sure you're not locking out anywhere. So basically, basic lunge. Just don't bring your feet together. Keep your feet stationary so that you're just like this, and you're doing just like that. Okay. So split squat would be a good thing to start with. Then I would go to sissy squat after that to get the quads, target the quads preferentially. Sissy squats are fantastic. They're better than leg extensions in my opinion. They always seem to get me more pumped, more sore, all those sorts of things that are good indications that you are effectively hitting the muscle. Grab onto a chair, whatever you need to do there, and hit some sissy squats. That's another good one to do a slow eccentric or an isometric hold at the end on. And then after that, we're going to go to some sort of deadlift, so posterior chain focused movement. Now, two good options here would be, depending on your strength, you can do Romanian deadlifts or sort of a straight-legged deadlift with the dumbbells. Or if the dumbbells are not heavy enough for that, just do a single leg deadlift. And as with all the single leg exercises, you're going to have your hand on a wall or a chair or something to help you with balancing. So just lightly touch the weight down. Make sure you're going cross body if you're doing single leg deadlifts, right hand to left foot sort of deal, and keeping your upper body straight. Single leg deadlifts are a great exercise. We like them a lot. And it can be easier to hit momentary muscular failure on those than it is on the Romanian deadlifts, which I know a lot of people have a lot of trouble hitting it on. But the Romanian deadlifts, here's the thing. You might get stuck at the bottom because the bottom is the hardest part, and that's just a sticking point. All you need to do then is just pick the weights up like a deadlift, or like a trap bar deadlift, and then reset at the top and do a real slow negative, and then do that again, and then do that again. And if you do 3 of those real slow negatives at the end, even if you didn't hit momentary muscular failure with the positive portion of the rep, you're going to be taxing the hell out of the muscle. So they'll be effective. All right, then I'd like to finish any of my leg sequences with a horse stance hold. So just get into a horse stance, or a wall squat is okay too, but I prefer the horse stance, and just hold it for as long as you can. This is just yielding isometric at the end. It's going to really, wring the rest of the strength out of your legs. And then finally, if you need to hit calves, some people don't need to hit their calves, you could hit calves. I usually do calves first, but most people don't struggle with their genetics, calf genetics, the way that I do. I put them first, but for most people, we can just do them at the end. So there you have an example. Now, obviously, I have videos that show this kind of approach to training. That sounded, I'm sure, like a ton of exercises, and it is a lot of exercises. But if you're only doing one set, you're doing it at home. There's no waiting for machines. There's no, getting waylaid by somebody who wants to talk to you about some nonsense that's going to take your mind off what you're supposed to be doing. you're just nailing it. You're going from one thing to the other. You got everything ready to go. You're all set up. You can easily finish this workout in 20 minutes. 20, maybe 25, something like that. If you're just flying through it. I would caution though. You don't want to go so fast that you start breathing super heavily through your mouth. The litmus test that I usually use is, am I able to more or less comfortably breathe through my nose? If I'm not able to do that, then it means that I slow down a little bit, give myself a little bit more time between the reps so that I can go back to nose breathing. And believe it or not, this will actually improve your cardiovascular health more than just pushing it all out so that you're like panting through your mouth, because it improves the organ that is responsible for the best kind of the most effective kind of aspiration that your body can do in addition. And so your nose is part of your cardiorespiratory system because it's the thing that respires. So by improving that organ, you're improving the system, the functioning of the system. Okay, so that's what I would recommend. And I hope that it helps. Now, if anyone who watched this has any questions or anything, you can put them down below. And if the guy who I made this video for has any questions, just throw them below or in the Facebook chat. And I look forward to supporting you in your journey as you transition away from the gym and to the home. You will find it immensely rewarding, I hope. I know I have. I rarely work out in gyms. The city gyms in Japan aren't great anyway, and I go to them occasionally, but I would say 80% of my workouts are done entirely at home, and I've gotten great results. So I'm sure you can too. If you're interested in learning more, getting all the demos, getting all of the walkthroughs, all of the explanations and everything, I've got programs down below. There's one that's entirely for free, 3-minute muscle, that introduces a bunch of different kinds of exercise methodologies that are very safe and effective. And then there's also the Synergy Strength Home Bodyweight program, which only requires 1 resistance band. Even though I talked a whole bunch of smack about resistance bands, they do come in useful occasionally. And then there's the Dumbbell home workout system, and both of those are available down below. Feel free to join the Facebook group, and you can also book a call from me for free anytime using the link down below. So thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. And train hard, but train smart. Take it easy, everyone.